TDK has got to have a favored matchup for this. I think it just has all the right typing for this matchup.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be slightly favored, I think, looking at the like you said, the right typing for this matchup. Um, and the TDK deck is obviously able to put out a lot of early pressure too. But we'll see. You know, you got to play it out for a reason. We will see how this one shapes up. We are going to be seeing Mike's point of view here. And Drifblim, that's a great point, Josh. We got the Drifblim as well, which can attack. This I think it plays both Drifblim too.
Oh,
No, it's just
Drifblim's
the one
pretty good
Drifblim.
at TDK as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, right. It's got the derail. You can get rid of special energy, and it can attack for. I think it attacks for free.
Yeah.
If there are more plasma Pokemon in play. So this one's going to be really interesting. Actually, I'm very excited to see how this one plays out. It's going to be one of our returning champions in Gabriel on that TDK deck up against Mike on the Landorus Raichu box deck. Something keeps happening with the screen here. I'll fix that in a second. I'm not sure what keeps happening there, but
I think they're gonna have to drop the Zard because they could get donked, but
yeah, chooses not to though. That's a little bit risky, but I guess you don't want to have that Charizard in play either.
yeah.
Very, very risky though.
It just lose. It does not take much to do 50 damage.
Yeah, especially with the laser. Now you just need to find what the
The
Verbank,
Oxus
the
or
Deoxys,
Burbank
yeah,
energy.
and of course a Colress machine could also do it with an energy on the active, or you could go in with the Raiden Knuckle.
Thunders, yeah.
Yeah, like there are tons of different ways this can go down. So definitely really curious to see the decision behind keeping this Voltorb active. There's the Genesect you're talking about.
Looks like
Can
they
you-
have it though.
Yeah, only 3 cards in hand. They're close. Need a switch card and an energy will have it. And Mike's got to be sweating bullets here. Like, Muscle Band too? I'm like on the edge of my seat. Like, do we have it? Stop moving the screen, Mike. All right, so we did whiff. The Voltorb stays alive. And that's got to be a little bit better of a Pokemon to bench in the Kyurem.
Yes.
But right as I say that, just gets completely shipped to that Juniper. And this hand is also not that great. At least we have the Ultra Ball, though, to go find that Electrode.
Yeah. But then at that point, they're just kind of putting down a Landorus as well, which is also weak, just like the Charizard.
Right. At least the Landorus, though, you can attack for 1 energy. So I guess there's the, like... And it can hit for weakness against the Thundurus. So this is really an interesting matchup of very different weaknesses going back and forth here. And I think it just really comes down to who can establish their board better, who can get more energy in play. And Mike can at least play out his whole hand and draw for 4 cards here with this Magnetic Draw, I think is the ability. Magnetic Draw, look at that. So keeps the draws moving. We do find the switch too, so we can put out some pressure. That's also just walking straight into a Frost Spear though. But we see that?
Yeah.
See that play though? How do you feel about that decision?
I feel like you gotta get something going, but like this damage is kind of mediocre in the grand scale of things. Like the 50 on the Kyurem is good because then you're putting it at 80, but then you're putting 30 onto the other Kyurem, and then like let's say that you KO this Kyurem on the following turn, and then they just promote the other Kyurem, and then they like one shot you and take 2. And then even if you kill the Kyurem, they'll still be ahead on the prize trade.
Yeah, I think going back to one of your earlier points in that, though, you really need to get something going. I mean, what is your alternative? Just like leaving this thing on the bench, not putting any pressure whatsoever.
Yeah.
And there is the chance that what just happened could happen, that you could whiff a switch card here, and this Kyurem could stay stuck in the active, which is the best case scenario. Of course, that could also just end up happening to Mike here too.
Really because like to not put down the Charizard and the Kyurem, and then to hold them because you don't want to put down EXs, and then put down a Landorus EX that also is double weak to Kyurem. It just feels bad.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess like what other choice
You
do
have
you
to do something,
have?
right?
Yeah, right. You have to do
Yeah.
something, and I think at least the Landorus is the most efficient attacker you have until you can build something up like a Raichu or this Mewtwo. And at least Mike's getting a little more set up here. Does have the Pikachu and the Mewtwo that you can throw down, but even the Mewtwo is weak to Deoxys, so like there's just so much different weakness in both of these kind of toolbox style decks. Squeaky, you made top 4 at regionals with your baby Electrode and VG. That's cool. Yeah, drawing cards is good. Who knew? Uses the magnetic draw before the Colress. I think that's a pretty good heads up play. Probably not going to be able to draw or play your hand down below 4 off the other side of this Colress. And you're able to find a bench Pokemon which beefs up that Colress draw for you as well. So definitely getting massively rewarded for it. And finds the Mr. Mime, which is pretty good against the potential of this Frostbeer. Can protect your bench with that, can protect your Pikachus and this Electrode. I am not sure why the stream window keeps moving. I apologize for that. It's not me, I swear. And it's unfortunate that we don't have something like a catcher or an escape rope that you could play. I think that would be really powerful here to take this Kyurem on prize on the bench. I guess you could switch into something else, though. You don't have to Hammerhead. But chooses just to go with the Hammerhead here. Put some additional bench damage in play, and we'll take a prize on this Kyurem. Where do you think makes the most sense to put this damage, though? The bench damage.
It depends on what they think that the next attacker is going to be. I don't think it would have been Thunderous for me. I think it was either going to have to be the Kyurem that's getting charged up, or the Deoxys doesn't sound like a bad target either.
Yeah, because you have to think about this in like a...
Yeah, I don't see that Thunderous being one of the main attackers moving forward, for at least like this turn or next turn. Because if you attack with the Landorus, they're going to attack with the Kyurem. And if you attack with the Deoxys, they're going to attack with Mewtwo. It's just whatever one you value more of.
Right. And I think part of the logic here is you have to kind of think about this in like a chess scenario where it's like, because there are so many competing weaknesses, you have to be like, okay, well, if I attack with this, what is their response? So I need to have a response to that, right? So maybe thinking like, okay, this Thunderous is going to be a good response to like a Raichu or something like that, maybe. So you just want to build up damage on something that you think is going to be a threat. But in my head, I think the Deoxys makes the most sense because that's your biggest... Yeah, it's your biggest threat to that Mewtwo. Also, hi, Lindsay. We're doing pretty well. We're already in the finals. We've been cruising through this tournament. But glad you could make it for the end. Well, at least from this position, though, you can start to use these Raichus to start, feeding some odd prizes in here and potentially end Gabriel later in the game. End them to completely low hand size and hope that they can whip some energy. And I think maybe that's why we were choosing to go after the Thunderous, like maybe thinking that's going to come up at some point after an end to recharge energy into play. Definitely very curious to see why that was chosen for the bench damage. And Mike's taking some time really going deep into the tank for this turn, maybe pondering a Lysander play. Do you see the Ultra Ball, though, so you can pitch this Pikachu, maybe that switch? Might want to get a second Raichu set up here. Go for the Drifloon. That makes a lot of sense, too. We mentioned that earlier, since it can actually attack for free. And that's actually a great way to deal with that Deoxys. The Muscle Band Derail will actually cleanly one-hit KO a Deoxys with weakness. And Mike kind of hovering over. This is a really tough decision. I think taking out the threat in that Kyurem is valid. I like keeping this hand, though. You have the Lysander, you have the Muscle Band, and a Computer Search. You have plenty of things to follow this up on the next turn.
Yeah.
What is up, Shadow Nova Dragon? Welcome in. We are here in the finals of Riley's Retro number 9. Hope your evening is going well. Hope you're enjoying the stream so far. So how are you feeling about this one if you're Mike, Cal? Are you looking at this board and thinking, okay, I have enough answers, or, you know, what are you most afraid of at this point?
It's gonna be really close. Obviously, N's gonna be a big card in both sides of this matchup because N's gonna be whoever goes ahead on tempo is gonna get hit with an N, and then it's gonna be kind of dependent on how well they draw off that N or how well they position their board state. No, they are attacking with that Raichu right now, so maybe that 30 damage will end up mattering.
Yeah, and that was kind of like, you go back and forth on it, and you can see obviously why Mike was really thinking so hard about where to put this bench damage, because, like, you know, where does it make the most sense? And now that we're thinking about the Drifloon, Blim, that can actually cleanly one-hit KO that Deoxys, I think it does make a little bit more sense on this Thundurus the more we kind of think about it and seeing the way that this plays out. But this is a great situation for Gabriel, being able to put out a lot of pressure with that laser into this Ride and Knuckle. I think they're still going to be just short of the KO here. Oh no, they actually pick up the KO exactly. Perfect. And like you just said, that to your point of, you know, preparing your board for an N, this is probably the best way to do that, is take a KO and accelerate some extra energy into play. And how do we feel about the attachment to the Absol there?
So it looks like they're deviating a bit away from the Deoxys because they see that the Drifloon's down.
Right.
So they're going for like their plan B, which is going to be the which is going to be leaving the Deoxys alone, and then going for either the Absol or the Kyurem and leaving both as options, depending on if this goes down.
Yeah, and I think it's really important because Mike has the option now to try to chase down two prizers, right? So that Deoxys is definitely going to be kind of appealing on the bench, as is this active Thundurus. So it's, you know, being able to charge up extra one prizers with that Raid and Knuckle. You're able to hopefully maybe go N into a KO with Absol, and then force your opponent, maybe if they whiff a Lysander one turn to close out the game, you can force them to take those odd prizes and, you know, keep yourself alive that much longer. So I like putting the energy onto one prizers and kind of abandoning that Deoxys threat, since, of course, the Drifblim is the natural response to that. I'm working on an IRL Lugia deck, struggling to find some energy cards I need. Oh, wow. Like even the uncommon ones? No luck with my local shops yet? That's unfortunate. Are you playing in San Diego, Shadow Nova? And we see the computer search for the laser, so this should be picking up the KO, I have to imagine. 1, 2, 3. 60, 80. Yeah, so we'll pick up the KO. So this is exactly what we were just talking about, like maybe being able to take, just go 2 prize knockout into 2 prize knockout. Not able to find a follow-up Lysander for the next turn, but now you have a big Lugia, or excuse Lugia, reading chat. You have a big Mewtwo in play. This is a hard Mewtwo to deal with now that Deoxys is down.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be difficult to get this Mewtwo off the board.
Yeah, and I think this is where you have to, if you're Gabriel, find that N and hit with something like that Absol. Put out a lot of pressure, but then kind of stabilize and hope that your opponent can't draw a game-winning Lysander off of the N. But of course, there's that Electrode in play, which can draw up to 4 cards, so kind of got a little bit of built-in N-proofing here, too. So we'll see what Gabriel has this turn, and this is still game 1. This has been a pretty long, decently long game 1 so far. And, you know, those early turns for Mike not really having a ton going on, needing to stabilize, and whiffing getting donked. We didn't even talk about that since that happened, but, you know, was very fortunate to not get donked in this game. Very suspect decision to not bench a Charizard to avoid losing, but we'll see how it ends up working out. And a Skyla over an N is played here, so Definitely not what Gabriel wanted to see. I don't think there's a way to take a KO even with Skyla finding... I guess you can Skyla for computer search and get something off of that, but I don't think there's a way to boost this Absol up enough to take the KO. Yeah, Colorado is great. I'm sure you would think so, Talia. So there's the Colress machine. And did have to use it on the active, which is a little unfortunate. Would have loved to get an extra energy down. Oh, I like this, though. Yeah, this is a really interesting play. So now we put Gabriel down to 2 prizes. Use that red signal, which we hadn't really talked about too much. But that red signal from that Genesect giving you a free gust whenever you attach a plasma energy to it. So... very strong move there from Gabriel, but of course now you're still very susceptible to Lysander. But this Mewtwo is still short of taking a KO on anything currently, so we would need to see a bunch of pieces from Mike to pick up that final KO to win the game. Yeah, and you can't play your hand down enough to magnetic draw either, so this is going to be a...
Yeah.
What's that?
What does that Spiritomb do?
I believe it's turns off all ace specs. I think is what it does. With its ability. No,
no. Giratina's I forgot the card. What they're called. It's an old mechanic though. The breaks.
Yeah. Okay. Each player can't play any ace spec cards from his or her hand. And its attack actually is pretty solid. For 1 colorless, shuffle your hand and draw as many cards as your opponent has in hand. So, just kind of a nice little utility card.
Yeah.
But turning off ace specs, so... Yeah, exactly. It shuts down G-Booster.
Okay.
I wonder... There were no decks that played Life Dew at this point, were there? I don't think so.
Maybe the Flareon deck, I think, played it.
Yeah, so could be pretty good. You know, maybe some, like, I don't know if there are any, like, straight Sableye control decks or anything that, you know, could use Life 2 at that point. But just kind of a nice little utility, you know, has that built-in utility attack, but also just turning off, most likely just, you know, there to turn off that G-Booster from Genesect. So not going to be relevant in this matchup, of course, but... and we did see the Mewtwo take the KO. Frizz, this is actually game 1, so we still do not have a results yet in this one. Still waiting for this one to play out. This is just game 1 here. Oh, Weavile was played Life 2. Yeah, I forgot about Weavile. So, yeah, just turning... A-Specs are really strong, right? You can only play one of them in your deck. You have Dowsing Machine, Computer Search... Life Dew, Scoop Up Cyclone, even Scramble Switch, like all of these really good.
And Master Ball.
And what?
Master Ball.
Master Ball. Gold Potion. Don't sleep on Gold Potion.
Oh, I forgot about Gold Potion. I think it was
Rock Guard.
Deck.
Yeah. So not going to be able to use those with that Spiritomb in play, but we see the Lysander here from Gabriel and V-Piece. Yes, a victory piece, I think it was. Gold Potion was completely unironically good in Darkrai. That's funny. And we see... Does this pick up the KO here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 100. Oh, I think it actually does take it out exactly. Wow. With the poison damage, will take this KO, and after a very long, grindy game 1, Mike will go up 1-0. So going into game 2, do you think there's a different approach here from TDK? What does Gabriel need to do to give themselves the best chance to win here?
Yeah, I think that the TDK player has to try to target down the Driftlums early, but also make sure that their board is set up to a position where they can kill Mewtwo whenever it starts attacking. I think Mewtwo seems like it's the most viable attacker other than Landorus. So like Kyurem's and Deoxys sounds really good.
We
But
have
like
to
you
open
have
the
to do it in
Charizard.
order.
Yeah. Also, Kamen Rider Gaming, thank you so much for the follow. Massively appreciate that. Welcome in to the stream. We're in game 2 of the finals of Rise Archer number 9. And Mike having to open the Charizard here is super unfortunate. I guess we could take a cheeky KO on this Genesect at some point. Crystal Edge and G-Scope. Actually, G-Scope was not useless. Our friend Josh Hatter posted a list that they got second at a cities with G-Scope in VG or something like that. So not completely useless. I've never seen Crystal Edge played though.
I've never seen Crystal Edge either.
Yeah, I don't actually even remember what it does. So, so the end there.
G-Scope does either. I think it does 100 snipe, right? Or does
it might boost up bench damage or something like that. I forget what it does. Like it was actually like decent. Like obviously G booster is just better, but
yeah.
what it do? It is 100 snipe, yeah.
Okay.
Which I mean it combos pretty well with the bench damage that you can get from Megalo Cannon, so I guess you're just like a bench attacking deck at that rate. G-Scope was baller though. Free 2 prize snipe on Rachi. Exactly. You're just like, give me that Jirachi. But yeah, Mike's hands have been pretty clunky with this deck. And it is a very, very toolbox style deck. You play a lot of different attackers. We've talked about the kind of weakness battle, the back and forth weakness of this. Yeah, Plasma Energy was also a free 2 prizes because you can just attach and use Red Signal. So very, very valid point. Don't use logic with me. Love that. But yeah, starting this Charizard might really get in the way of Mike's game plan. Obviously not the ideal Pokemon to have. And do you even burn this switch to put, like, you put your Drifloon at risk to do that? But yeah, I guess you want to just get this Charizard out of dodge, but don't want to see this Drifloon go down either. Juniper doesn't give too many options. We have this Ultra Ball to go find another Drifloon if you really want to. Again, it comes down to what Mike is choosing to prioritize for attackers in this matchup, going into this game 2. So I think the Drifloon we've identified was that Drifblim being able to respond pretty convincingly to a Deoxys is definitely a very solid option. I think definitely going to want to dodge a KO here if you're Mike, if you can. And still amazing to me that, there was definitely a very solid chance that Mike could have just outright lost game 1 by choosing to not bench this Charizard. And Charizard says, no, I want to see the board. I want to be played. Put me down. Charizard's like...
You're right.
Huh?
Voltorb has 50 HP.
Which is 50 HP?
Voltorb.
Voltorb has 50, I believe, yes. So, yeah, but the Charizard's like, put me in, coach, so... Made the decision for him. Does come down into this game, too. But were the Genesects on the board, maybe you could, like I said, take a cheeky KO on the Genesect this way. I forget how much Charizard's first attack does. Does the Muscle Band get you there? To 60, so it'll do 160 with weakness and a Muscle Band, but you can clean that up later with the bench snipe from Landorus. But, I mean, there's the beginnings of a strategy here. And while Gabriel doesn't have too much going on either, just goes in with the Frost Spear. Interesting. So the Drifloon does survive, which is very good for Mike. Can use this Ultra Ball. But this discard's going to be kind of painful. get rid of the N and the energy. But now are you going to Colress for 2? Can go in with this Drift Limb. Oh my god, I can't. Can actually use this derail because of its ability, and discards the special energy, which is very, very relevant, especially getting rid of that prism energy, making it that much harder for this Kyurem to attack on the following turn. See if Gabriel has much of anything in their hand, though, and yeah, kind of almost getting punished for going in with this Kyurem so aggressively. The Lysander, but maybe nothing to follow that with. Wow, no additional energy. But Mike doesn't have a ton to work with here either. I believe this Charizard has a 3 retreat cost. No, it just has the 2. Okay, so we'll be able to retreat. But you have to burn that DCE to do so. And we dizzy the Colress for 2. Oof. Interesting. So we choose not to retreat there. Choosing to not take this KO. I guess this makes a lot of sense though, because that Verbank will take the rest of that damage off, and Mike's hand is very poor, so not going to be able to have any kind of follow-up. You definitely want to just hope you can get this KO through that Verbank and get yourself some more time. But the energy is found, so at least that Frost Spear puts out a little bit of pressure with that weakness, putting that Charizard up to 110. But the N off the prizes is just what Mike needed. Of course, this actually might give us a full game, though, because you play that N and you have to give Gabriel a new hand. So actually choosing to use this Level Ball, find that Jirachi, and grab a Juniper instead definitely makes a lot of sense, since you can obviously tell that your opponent does not have a ton going on. You don't want to be ending them to 6 new cards if you can help it. Yeah, we could actually... I don't know how many muscle bands are left for Mike. We could actually computer search for a muscle band and pick up this KO on the Genesect here. There are 4 in the deck. I think there might still be some unaccounted for. There are 2 left, so wow, we're just going to go right in for the KO. Actually kind of forgot about the laser damage in my calculation earlier, but this wing attack will actually pick up the KO through weakness and that laser... the laser Verbank combo there. So, and Mike again taking supporters off the prizes so you don't have to play N. But Charizard actually putting in work in this one. And a Juniper. Wow. Okay, so good for Gabriel that we'll actually get to play the game a little bit longer. But you definitely want to find something like a Colress machine here if you can. Pick up this KO on the Charizard would be great. Otherwise, this Charizard is just going to continue to put out pressure with that wing attack. Obviously not doing a ton of damage against the Deoxys, but, damage is damage.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, we also could just go into that Drift Limb and... does it do 50 base or 70 base? The 70 base, so... you could even just go in and smack that Deoxys for 140. So heads up play, switching into the Kyurem here to kind of deny that option to Mike, who top decks a Landorus. And debating between the Colress or maybe benching the Landorus. And there's that Kyurem again, the Kyurem EX that we're still trying to figure out the specific use for. I think we kind of decided it was probably there for Landorus. Other Landorus, perhaps. But really just a back and forth matchup of different weaknesses. Both of these decks kind of trying to prey on, what weaknesses they can between the Charizard, the Kyurem, the Landorus, the Pikachu, or the Raichu. Like, this is a very, very much just like a weakness box deck. And even TDK, because you have all of the different multicolored attackers that can all benefit from this plasma energy, and the Colress machine, you have the same thing on the other side as well with Gabriel. So looking at this board state, Kyle, do you think, what is is there a way that Gabriel can come back in this one? It looks pretty grim, down 3 prizes, but what is the avenue back into this one?
It looks pretty bad from here. Like, yeah, there's some things that they could have done, maybe if Mr. Mime wasn't down, but I think with Mr.
Mm,
Mime being down at this point, I think it's too far gone.
right. And I think I mean, you could pick up a KO if you're able to find a Chorus machine here. Go down to 4 prizes. I mean, maybe you're hoping that these lasers will keep this Charizard asleep. And
Yeah,
maybe there's no attack. And actually, this Charizard would... is it 170 or 180?
if
It
it's
might
170,
go...
it would
It's
die going out of this
180.
turn.
It is
So if it's
180,
one,
though. Yeah.
yeah, then it'll have an
Charizard's too
extra turn.
thick.
Oh,
But we did at least buy the turn here. There is no retreat available. So this Charizard will go down at some point to poison, most likely. But not between turns going into Gabriel's turn, which would have been huge. But at least Gabriel did buy themselves another turn here. But this one is definitely seeming to slip away. Yeah, and like you said, that Mr. Mime being in play is pretty annoying because this Charizard would be a great Pokemon to take off on a bench snipe KO where you can go maybe, you know, bring up that damage Drifloon, Driftblim. I can't remember the Drift something.
yeah.
You could bring up the damage Driftblim and take that and the Charizard out in the same turn, especially coupled with like an N or something. Like that would be, you know, really great way to come back into this one. Take 3 prizes in the same turn. But of course that Mr. Mime being in play prevents that. So a little bit unfortunate. But one thing to note, a difference in this game versus the last game is that Mike was not able to establish this electrode. So definitely going to be susceptible to these Ns as the game progresses, and we even see it here. I mean, finding the core rest for 10 is pretty good, but you know, as you're going down to 2 and 1 prizes, N to 1 is a very legitimate option as well. But if you're Mike, you just have so many prizes lined up already. You know, that Deoxys on the bench with damage already on it can go down fairly easily to the Drifblim, and you're already taking the KO on the active. So that's why you think you see Mike holding this hand with the Lysander in it. You have the chorus if you need to dig for a specific piece on the following turn. But you also have that Lysander to chase down that Deoxys for what should be the final 2 prizes of the game. And you also kind of play dead too. You say like, oh, my hand is useless. I can't do anything, you know? So that you're hoping that Gabriel doesn't N you. Interesting that Mike chose to bench that Voltorb because the Electrode was in the discard pile and there are no ways to recover Pokemon. I think maybe just trying to play out more cards to not dead draw off of N. I think that might be the most, yeah.
And they play a 1/1 line, right?
Correct, and there's no way to recover that either, so...
Interesting.
Maybe if you're, I guess maybe there's the option or the potential that you could go like N to take out this Raichu with Raid Knuckle, and then you want to just throw something up to get KO'd while you draw out off an N. So maybe it's just kind of like a sacrifice. And it does also have a pretty annoying ability. I think if it's KO'd, you put 5 damage counters onto the attacking Pokemon when it gets KO'd, so that could be pretty relevant too. So I think that makes the most sense to me, just kind of like wanting to play around N in multiple different ways. But there's a Skyla, so that's not an N. But the Startling Megaphone is big, gets rid of that muscle band off the Drifloon. And the Raichu does wake up. And another Lysander is drawn for Mike. So what are we thinking here? Are we just going to hit this Landorus with Circle Circuit? I guess you can bring up the Deoxys maybe and derail it. Put a lot of pressure on it with this Lysander since you have the second one in hand. Just goes in with the derail and the active though. I don't know how I feel about this, to be honest. I guess maybe are we baiting out that Deoxys into play on the following turn, hoping to Colress into Drifblim Muscle Band on the next turn. Yeah, this is a pretty interesting decision, though. I guess you do have the Raichu that can clean up this Landorus, but I'm kind of curious, and again, we don't have the end, so I think this is going to be a moot point in the end, since this Lysander will be able to bring up this damage Landorus and take the KO with Circle Circuit. I don't think there's anything we can see at this point to change that outcome. Oh yeah, I have a Lysander anyway, yeah, so think this one is just going to go down. The writing being on the wall. Writing is on the wall for Mike. With that Lysander, actually 2 copies of Lysander just waiting in hand as soon as Gabriel. So I misread my deck awfully. Wouldn't have any card. Yeah. Oh, 0 card. I didn't even notice that, but yeah. Gabriel did just deck himself out. So this game is 100% over. But Mike will have the game, if he so chooses, with the Lysander to take the final prizes. I think that's probably a little bit cooler than letting your opponent accidentally deck themselves out. So we'll see if Mike wants to be a good sport about it. But this one is going to be over. And Mike, with this crazy Landorus Raichu toolbox deck, going to take down Riley's Retro #9, the 2014 Worlds Format Tournament. And huge congratulations, take down returning former champion Gabriel with that TDK, and huge congratulations to Mike.